Hi. So we are in part three, and we're going to talk about the story directly. The best way, I think, to talk about this story is not to go, sentence by sentence, but to talk about certain key words. And the first of which is the one that I think repeats the most. I didn't count all the words, but it feels like it repeats the most. And if you said that it's the word gay, then you got what I was thinking as well. The word gay. So today, usually the word gay is the appropriate common word to describe homosexuals, especially male homosexuals. But not only, but in 1925, when the story was published and written, it wasn't a common word. In fact, it wasn't used at all in the common English to describe homosexuality. That's why I'm suggesting that this is a code word. The meaning of gay was either happy, but also it had another meaning of loose, especially sexually loose, but not necessarily having to do with homosexuality, any kind of sexual looseness. So it was already connected to sexuality, but maybe not in a narrow sense. So even if you say, no, Stein didn't mean it gay like we use it today, then she can hint at it because it was already part of the meaning of that word. Okay? But it is very possible that in 1925, gay people actually already started using that word. So if you were part of the community or had many friends in that community, as many literary people would have had, you'd understand that gay means lesbian here. But if you're not part of the community at all, you would miss it. So that's kind of the game of secret language, of making you, giving you the ability to say things without everybody understanding, and in a way that also fosters the community, right? If you have a kind of secret language together, it forms a kind of club. Once you can speak to each other in a way other people don't understand, it creates a community. Okay? So it probably, in this story, it has the meaning of happy, but also the meaning, kind of the secret meaning of um, of lesbians. In fact, the story does not only give us this play on the word gay, but it also thematizes the issue of speaking and talking about your identity through the word voice. They cultivated their voice, they have voices. So in the first paragraph, not at the very beginning, but in the first paragraph, we already hear that Helen Furr had quite a pleasant voice, a voice quite worth cultivating. She did not mind working. She worked to cultivate her voice, right? Voice, not only physical singing voice, right? Here you can understand it as her ability to sing or to act, but no, it's also her ability to speak for herself, to say, to speak of her identity, right? She worked to cultivate her voice, who she is. She did not find it gay living in the same place where she had always been living. Okay, it's difficult to be gay when you're living with your parents. She went to a place where some were cultivating something, voices and other things needing cultivating. So she goes to a place where she can speak, where you can cultivate your voice, and you can make your voice better. That's where she meets Miss Skeene. She met Georgine Skeene there, who was cultivating her voice, which some thought was quite a pleasant voice. So they are both trying to speak for themselves, present their identities, and that's what going to enable them to be gay together, either happy or lesbian lovers. Okay, so here the voice can mean that she's a good singer, or like if you have a voice, it means that you can speak for yourself. And she's working on speaking for herself. So Helen Fair had quite a completely pleasant voice, and it was quite well enough cultivated, and she could use it, and she did use it. But then, right, she's using it to express herself. It it, but then there was not any way of working at cultivating a completely pleasant voice when it has become a quite completely well enough cultivated one, right? Right. Once you developed your voice and you speak for yourself, maybe it stops being pleasant. Maybe you're saying things that are not completely pleasant, as she puts it in the story. When it has become a quite completely well enough cultivated one, and there was not much use in using it when one was wanting it to be helping to make one a gay one, right? When you use the voice to teach people about your identity, about being a gay one, then it becomes unpleasant to some people. So, what do you do when people don't want to hear you, when they say that your voice is an unpleasant one? What do you do then? We don't get an answer. But we see a connection between a pleasant voice and maybe not using it fully, between being a gay one, being gay, and using your voice. Helen Fair was not needing using her voice to be a gay one. She was gay then, and sometimes she used her voice, and she was not using it very often. So, on the other hand, she's gay regardless of whether or not she talks about it, or she's using her voice, or singing about it, or writing about it. You say the writer's voice, but it's speaking by writing. So it's who she is, even if she doesn't talk about it. So maybe it's okay to write about it, but not directly. As I promised, more questions than answers. Another word that's used many, many times in the story is regular. Maybe take a minute to think, why do you think regular is used so much? Maybe Google the word regular and see what the definitions are. So I did that. So let's see how on the first page the word regular or regularly is used. They were both gay there. They were regularly working there, both of them cultivating their voices there. They were both gay there. Georgine Skeene was gay there and she was regular. Regular in being gay, regular in not being gay, regular in being a gay one who was one not being gay longer than we was needed to be one being quite a gay one. Okay, so they're not always gay, maybe trying to say that it's not something that the only thing that you can be even if you're gay. That's not the main subject. And right now it's regular. Why the word regular? So the regular is a word that's used a lot in English and it has a number of different definitions. Okay, this is not just connotations, this is dictionary definitions. So it can be recurring at a uniform interval, right? Every so often you do something, or something that's usual or customary. Okay, every week I regularly go to the supermarket, just again and again and again. or always, present simple. But regular can also be conforming to what's expected, to conventions, being normal, right? So, sort of the surface meaning of regularly in this passage is in terms of every week, every day. But there's also the understanding that maybe there's an issue with being normal, right? Gay people, lesbians, all the people from the queer spectrum struggle with people telling them you're not normal. Who you love is not the normal person for you to love. Who you are is not the normal thing to do. You're abnormal, deviant, something they can face and maybe want to overcome. So maybe this is repeating this word regular, which also just means normal, and regular in being gay is a kind of way, a roundabout way, a secret way of asserting that no, we are not abnormal. This is a regular, a normal way to be. Again, it's not something that in 1925 you could really say outright, especially when it's so difficult to talk about sexual orientation in that period. And a lot of the culture pointing out that this is abnormal. But she finds a way through her experimentation, through her modernist style, to say this. And uh, even if most people are not going to listen, some of her audience and people, perhaps especially people who are part of the gay community, are going to listen to her and say, yes, we are regular. This is a very interesting and funny way to say, yes, we are regular. It is regular. It is normal to be gay. And that this is a story about two women who find each other and find a way to be who they are and speak about who they are, and not necessarily live happily ever after, but find each other and be themselves and be happy, right? The interpretation of gay as happy is still relevant. And be happy together and find a place for themselves, right? Another word that repeats again and again is there. So two women, Furr and Skeene, finding each other and finding a place in the world for themselves and speaking for themselves and having a voice. And the story is, in a way, kind of their voice.